The room trembled with a silence so heavy it felt alive. Machines hummed, monitors blinked, and a cold breeze slipped through the half-open hospital blinds as if even the daylight hesitated to enter. And standing between hope and despair were two fathers, one draped in an expensive charcoal suit with trembling hands, and the other in a faded janitor's uniform, smelling faintly of disinfectant but carrying a certainty in his eyes stronger than any doctor's report. "Turn off the machine," whispered the humble single dad, his voice almost breaking but firm with something unexplainable. "Your son will wake up. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and miracles that come from unexpected people, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Reports. It helps us bring more true-to-life stories that warm the heart." The day had started like any other for Ravi Ortega, a middle-aged single father who worked as a janitor at the prestigious Salvantis Tech Towers. The sun was bright, the streets buzzing, and Ravi's battered bicycle squeaked as he pedaled to the hospital before starting his shift. His son, Matteo, lay in a long-term recovery ward after a terrible accident the previous year. Doctors had given up hope long ago, but not Ravi, never Ravi. Every morning he whispered to his son, massaged his hands, told him stories, and hummed the lullaby Matteo loved as a child. And somehow, somewhere deep in his heart, he believed the boy wasn't gone, he was simply waiting. At the same hospital, several floors above, Billionaire tech CEO Marcus Vellerin was crumbling under the weight of grief. His teenage son, Aiden, had collapsed from a sudden neurological failure. Machines breathed for him. Specialists flew in from abroad, teams of experts whispered theories, and the world watched the story unfold across headlines. But after weeks of no progress, even Marcus, who conquered industries with sheer will, was falling apart. The doctors urged him to prepare for the inevitable. Ravi's janitorial duties often brought him to the upper floors, and though he was invisible to most, he noticed everything. He saw the billionaire sitting in that sterile room with his head buried in his hands. He saw a father who, despite all the wealth in the world, looked more broken than anyone he had ever seen. Something about Marcus's pain mirrored his own, the terror of losing a child, the helplessness that ate at the soul, the desperate hope a parent clung to with bleeding fingers. One afternoon, while sweeping outside the ICU, Ravi heard Marcus's voice cracking behind the glass. "Please, please don't take my son," he murmured, trembling as doctors discussed removing life support. Something in that plea pierced Ravi deeply. He stepped quietly inside, each movement humble and unsure, like a man stepping into a room where he didn't belong but where he was needed. "I'm sorry, sir," Ravi whispered, eyes lowered. "I overheard. I didn't mean to intrude." Marcus didn't reply at first. He only wiped his eyes, exhausted beyond expression. Ravi hesitated, but the words pushed through him, guided by something he couldn't explain. "Your son, he's not gone. I've seen this before. With my boy. When they said he wouldn't wake up, I felt something different. And I feel it here too." Marcus finally looked up. "Your boy?" His voice was empty, as if he no longer believed anything could matter. Ravi nodded and told him about the accident, the long coma, the nights he slept in a plastic chair just to stay beside Matteo. He explained how sometimes a child didn't need more machines, they needed silence, warmth, and their parents' voice reaching them through the fog. Then came those impossible words, spoken gently but with rare conviction, "Turn off the machine. Your son will wake up." The doctors were stunned. Marcus was speechless. Why would a janitor say such a thing? How could he? But something in Ravi's trembling sincerity made Marcus pause. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't ignorance. It was a father speaking to another father, with nothing to gain, with everything to lose. Against every protocol, against every warning, Marcus asked for 5 minutes, just 5, to disconnect the sedation and let silence fill the room. Doctors protested, but he insisted. Ravi stood by the doorway, clasping his hands so tightly they turned white. The room, once full of beeping machinery, settled into a fragile stillness. Marcus leaned close to his son, brushing his hair gently. "Aiden, it's Dad. If you can hear me, come back. I'm right here." A tear slipped down Marcus's cheek and fell onto his son's hand. Seconds passed. Then more. The weight of uncertainty was unbearable. And then Aiden's finger moved. Barely. Softly. But undeniably. Monitors flickered. Doctors froze. Marcus gasped as the faintest flutter appeared beneath his son's eyelid. A spark of consciousness. A thread of life pulling itself upward. A cry tore from Marcus's throat, half disbelief, half overwhelming relief. The medical team rushed in, and the room erupted into frantic hope. Ravi watched from the hallway, tears in his own eyes, whispering a quiet prayer. He knew this feeling, the miracle of a child beginning to return. He knew it all too well. In the days that followed, Aiden stabilized. Reports spoke of a spontaneous neurological event, but Marcus knew better. Science had its place, but so did simple human intuition, faith, and the bond between parent and child. Marcus found Ravi still doing his janitorial rounds, pushing his cleaning cart like nothing extraordinary had happened. The billionaire approached him with a gratitude so deep he struggled to form words. "You saved my son," Marcus said, voice breaking again. "I didn't save him," Ravi replied gently. "He just needed you, not the machines." Marcus learned then about Mateo's condition, about the year he had spent in silence, about the single father who worked 3 jobs and still whispered hope daily into a sleeping boy's ear. And for the first time in his life, Marcus understood the meaning of strength, not the kind built from money, but the kind built from love. Days later, Marcus pulled strings, money, and every connection he had to assemble the best international neurological team for Mateo. They reviewed his case with fresh eyes guided not just by data but by renewed faith. 3 weeks later, when sunlight poured through the room like a warm blessing, Mateo's fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered. And Ravi, who never stopped believing, felt the entire world tilt toward joy as his son slowly woke from the darkness.